Hey, Bright Lights, welcome back to the Space Doctor series on the Architecting channel. My name is Angela. I am an architect and a feng shui practitioner, and I make thoughtful weekly videos that demystify the science behind design for well-being. I've spent my whole career studying this, and it's a field called salutogenesis, which is a fancy Latin term for health generating. But I know that most people don't really want to or have time to do that kind of research. But I know how important this is through my work as an architect to really help create quality environments. And that's really what we want to do. Even if you are not an architect or an interior designer, it's really fun to listen in just to learn a little bit more about how much your space affects you and how you can make changes. So every week I will draw a card from my Salutogenesis deck, and the deck has two parts. We have foundational concepts, which are essentially research behind what creates well-being in our lives, and we have the 5 aspects of salutogenesis, which are 5 different theories that I've identified as core to well-being. Now, I've also overlaid on those elements from feng shui. So feng shui has 5 elements. There are 5 aspects in salutogenesis. And I really felt that the attributes of the elements and the attributes of these theories paired especially well together. So I will explain a little bit more about the element as well as the aspect of salutogenesis when I draw the card from the deck. Let's go ahead and get started. The first card that I drew from the foundational concepts part of the deck is neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity is essentially the brain's ability to evolve. So you can see on the card that there is a brain, but there's also this network of different inputs that are all interconnected and very dynamic and constantly changing in their linkages to one another. And essentially, what we mean when we refer to neuroplasticity is that we've got neural pathways in our brain that are formed in response to certain repeating stimuli. It's how we learn to talk, how we understand cause and effect, even how we form habits. Because when you do certain activities in a certain order, like drive to work or tie your shoes, you stop thinking about all the different steps and it just becomes one action that you don't have to put a lot of mental effort into. That is how those neural networks work. Neurons in each of the brain cells that we have wire together and then they fire together. And the more we do something, the more we believe it, the more we reinforce it, the stronger that connection gets. Now, where does neuroplasticity come in all this? We can change those connections. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy. When we have a habit, we all know that it takes a lot of concentration and effort to change that habit. However, once you change it, and you build that new neural network, it's also not very easy to go back because those connections have been lost. So that is how neuroplasticity works. So how do we think about this in terms of the space we're in? Well, it can look like environments that stimulate activity or support a different process or cause us to have to make unexpected changes or different associations. It can look like things like environmental anchors or objects that we attach certain meaning to that can help to remind us to think differently or to act differently. It's a disruption. If you have a goal that you're working toward, You might have an object that symbolizes that goal that you put in your home somewhere you can see it very prominently, hopefully near the front door, which is the career part of your bagua in feng shui, so that you are reinforcing that new goal that you have and thinking about ways you can get there and challenging your brain to rewire. Now, the card that I drew from the aspects part of the deck comes from the biophilia aspect, and biophilia is essentially creating that connection to nature. As human beings, we're part of nature. We are hardwired to resonate with the natural world. Biophilia is something I associate with the wood element in feng shui. And wood is all about growth, flexibility, connectivity, networking. The card that we are looking at here is non-rhythmic stimuli. So this is the aspect of biophilia that is capturing the sights, sounds, textures that are not part of a predictable pattern. And you can see on the card, we are looking up through a tree canopy, which has very random branching and leaves, with the dappled sunlight coming in, creating ever-changing movement and shadows, and looking up at the hot air balloon, which is moving in the wind, which is always changing, as well as the random pattern of the clouds in the sky. So these are all examples of non-rhythmic stimuli. And the reason that this is valuable is that when we see these non-rhythmic stimuli, they reduce stress. Studies have shown that they improve productivity and that they are restorative. So some design examples of this are randomized patterns, lighting or sound effects, something that can change as light hits it throughout the day. Things like green walls or plantings in a space, because the plants are always going to change. Transparency, translucency, iridescence, even elements that are dynamic on the building that might move with the wind or change as we move around them. So when we see them from one angle, it appears one way, and as we move, it actually seems to change in form. So you might have seen this as like a colonnade, which might look solid and become more transparent as you get to be straight on with the columns, or horizontal slats that are arranged in an angle. And so it's very dynamic to experience moving around it, or something that is one color on one side and a different color on another side. Those are all great examples of this. And when we put these two cards together, neuroplasticity and non-rhythmic stimuli, we get a really nice pairing, because we start to see that our brain actually appreciates change and dynamicism. That change can help us grow, can help us stay mentally sharper, can even help to elevate mood, because it causes us to build more neurons, and stress depletes our neurons, will even kill them off, studies have shown. And a great way to have a very dynamic environment is by introducing some elements of non-rhythmic sensory stimuli. And again, you can do that through views to nature, which is going to already have that built in, the ability to get outside, move around outside. But you can also do it through a lot of things that you can build into the space, whether that's a lighting effect that mimics dappled light, or that changes color or intensity. Even sounds can start to do this. So there's a lot of opportunities here. I hope you are really excited to try this, either in your home or in your community or on a project that you are working on. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and reach out. Let me know how you are using this and what you're learning, what's different, what's happening in your space. Take care.